See, this Gen Alpha and Gen Z kids, what you guys are living with it is something like, you guys don't need actually the information from the leaders, because you guys have information already available. Say, for our ages, for our decade, we need to rely upon the library, we need to rely upon the teachers for us to teach the coding, finance, entrepreneurship. For me to know about the word entrepreneurship, to get into the entrepreneurship, it almost took like, 10 years after my college, after my corporate life. But for you guys, right now you're sitting over there, most of the people are from the schools. You guys listen to the podcast, you go through the YouTube, you guys have your own curriculum, AI, name it, you have it. So the information is overwhelming. So there is nothing for a leader to teach you guys all those kind of things which the media and the podcast can able to easily do it for you. The leaders should really understand the purpose, the reason. The leader should not go back and say like, I want the output of this way, so do it that way. No, that's not the way a leader can able to expose himself to. He need to articulate the purpose. He need to articulate the purpose, reason behind, and even the clarity. And he need to connect more empathetically with the individual to get the work done. Okay, and before we talk about, see, there are a lot of people who are just new, and for you guys to know what is leadership is all about. See, leadership is a very subjective term. You cannot measure leadership with the quantified marks or a number. Leadership is something like, I being the millennial who is exactly in the midpoint, 2 generation before, like, we have baby boomers, we have the Gen X who is kind of leading all our corporate life, and I do have 2 generations in the future where Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Gen Z is directly reporting to me, and Gen Alpha, I hope, like, I have my kid whom I'm managing it. So we are in the midpoint. Knowing in the midpoint, we know typically what leadership thing is all about in terms of a corporate life. Leadership is more in terms of creating reports, creating dashboard, and then looking through the performance of a company and managing the people. So this is how the leadership goes on. And for you guys, when you're going to come in, this is what the typical leadership will be all about. But in the current world, when you guys going to move into it, irrespective of the change in generation, there is also a technology adoption comes in, where you have an AI world. AI is taking over a lot of things. There's absolutely nothing in terms of the data, because data is clearly coming out of the engine, the technology, the reason, the purpose, the people behind the data. When something goes wrong, the system tells you the thing's gone wrong. So that the technology can do it. But the person behind it, the human story behind that dip in the sales, dip in the productivity, that is something the leaders has to be really conscious about. So the gap between the insight generated by the technology and the human story that resonates with the insight, that is exactly is where the leadership lives at this generation. So it is just a transformation from Gen Z to Gen Alpha. On top of it, there is also an AI era which is completely eradicating and eliminating and repurposing some of the roles. So you have to cross correlate both the things together, and the leaders of the next generation, you guys should be really conscious about the human value behind it, or the person behind each of the number that comes in. So that is something I want to create a strong impact in, but different leaders use a different technique in managing the team. So everywhere the tools and techniques used might be different. In the freedom fighting, the tools used might be different. In a startup, the tools used might be different. Maybe in the war field, the tools used might be different. But there is a one common dot that you can able to connect in all those eras. That is going to be the emotion that moves the people. So if you can look at the commonality or generality on all these eras, the one thing which remain common is going to be the emotional leadership. So that is something which is inadvertently remains same in the past, in the present, and it's going to be in the future as well. So emotion need not have to be always soft or sentimental. See, what you need to actually as a leader need to make sure in your team is these 4-dimensional fundamentals. See, as a leader, you need to make sure your team, every individual in your team is feel seen. Like even if you have a member of a 10, 20, it applies to your school, colleges, or whichever team you are in. Even if there can always be a person like, out of 20, there can be 2 or 3 people who might be excellent, but he might be hiding behind the scenes. He may not be able to expose himself. But every single person in the team should feel that, he's seen, his efforts are valued. So that is something, as a leader, you need to make sure everybody has to be feel seen. Everybody's input, efforts are valued. Like somebody gives you an input, you should give them a feel like, his inputs are valued, he's acknowledged. It shouldn't be like, you need to overlook it. They should feel like, my contribution, my questions, my answer, my suggestions are valued. So that's something, you need to make sure. So everybody should be feel seen. Everybody should be feel valued, and then they should feel they've been part of the team. They belong to this team. They shouldn't feel like, I'm an alien sitting out of a 20 or a 30 member crowd. No, they should feel like, I belong to this team. I belong to the team which is creating a bigger future. So they should have that feel of belonging. And the last and the final part, the team and the individual should have a feel that, that the leader is working towards the growth of my own individual, because this particular generation is always very conscious that, every single day they keep learning a lot of new things, and they feel their growth is always matters. So these 4-dimensional things should be the impact whenever a leader is trying to interact with any generations of the team. So you should be feel seen. You should, every individual should be valued. They should feel they belong to it. And the last one, they should feel like, their growth matters to my leadership team or to my company. So that is something, an impact a leader should create on every single individual. Once the leader could able to create all these 4 impacts, the efforts from that individual is going to be the best effort, and it's going to be a strong commitment. You're going to get it, and you're going to have a real loyal generation of people that you're going to build out. So that's something, I thought the 4 fundamentals. And for you to get to these 4 fundamentals, there are 6 different styles of leadership we have. The first leadership style, maybe you can make a note of it in your mind. The first leadership style is more of a visionary, because gone are the days like, guys like us, when we are into the college, for us, the vision is more in terms of getting completed the 4-year curriculum and getting into a company. But for the Gen Zs and Gen Alpha, the real vision stands like, they should feel they belong to the future. They are building something to the future of it. They should feel like, they are part of a bigger mission and a vision that drives them forward. So the vision of the company by itself should drive an individual to be a part of it. So that style of leadership is going to be a visionary leadership. The next is going to be a coaching style. But the very important part, the Gen Zs and Gen Alpha, they don't look for a supervisor who kind of sits behind them, asks them to learn. They are looking for a mentor where they need to be rightly coached, they need to be rightly guided for the individual growth. So this style of leadership is called a coaching style of leadership, where when there is a problem, the leader should not come back and say like, your productivity has been dipped. The leader should come back and say, hey, your productivity has been dipped. Let's work together in terms of coaching you or mentoring you or giving you a right toolkit so that I stand behind you and make sure you go successful. That's the level of a mentoring is what the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha kids are looking at. And that's the coaching style that everybody has to go through it. And that applies to, again, not just to the corporate, to the parents, to everybody, where you need to adapt to the right coaching style so that, the team will feel belong to you. The next one is going to be the more of human bonds. See, current generation, unfortunately, work from home is good in a way, remote working is good in a way, but unfortunately what happens, as the distance grows, the bonding between individual goes away. Because in this practical world, people work on a remote location. It is not possible for everybody to go out on a common place or hang out on a common place. But what you can definitely do is that, whenever there is a problem, whenever there is a situation that arises, the leader should be the first person who should stand in front of the problem and say like, I am there for you. I can take over the problem. You can confidently focus on arriving at a solution. The team should have a feel that the leader is the one who is taking up the hit first, or leader is somebody who comes be with the team whenever there is a situation arises or whenever there is a crisis arises. So that will create more of a bonding with the team. So the third point is more in terms of creating more of a human bond. That is something which an AA cannot do it. The leaders should have to do it. So that's the third style of it. And the next one is going to be more of a democratic style. The democratic style applies more for everybody, because the current generation, you guys live in terms of social media. You guys do a lot of commenting. You guys do a lot of collaboration, networking, lot of things. And you guys are not doing it just to listen things. You guys doing it more in terms of socializing, networking, rising out your opinion. So the leader should be somebody who should really consciously able to listen to each of the comments from every single individual, because the single individual, he might have his own style, he might have his own opinion, but when a leader looks up to it and when the leader can able to listen to all those things and can able to transform it, the individual can feel his ideas are valued. So the democratic style of leadership is going to be the fourth part which you guys need to possess. And the fifth one is going to be a pace setting. So typically what happens, whenever the leadership comes in, people talk about like being soft and then like consoling the team whenever they make an achievement. And more often the problem comes, and even in the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, what happened? People do, and if people put up an effort, they give a partial output and they expect a well acknowledgement from the leadership team. But that's something, you can do an acknowledgement, but at the same time, as a coach for an athlete, you should always know the potential of an individual. And even when you get a right output, it's always better you acknowledge it, but still you keep raise the bar so that the individual can deliver the things to the fullest potential. It is not that you give them a dosage of appreciation so that the people get consented, people get composed with whatever they have delivered. So the pace setting style is more importantly where you need to first evaluate an individual's potential, and the moment you know the individual's potential, whatever the output comes in, you need to always keep raising the bar to make sure you get the best out of it. So that's the pace setting style, which is going to be the fifth. And the last one is going to be a very tricky one, where any of the previous styles of leadership doesn't going to work. The last is going to be the commanding style. The commanding style is more of a double-sided sword, where you need to use it very consciously. So because if you quite often use it, people will categorize or badge you to be the aggressive leader. But this is going to be a situation where there is a crisis, there is a scenario where you need to immediately take a decision. Like say for an example, like you are a pilot where you need to do a crash landing. You cannot be democratic where you get an opinion of everybody to make a choice, because at those particular moment your decision has to be instinct, and it has to be direction oriented, and it has to be focused. And sometimes you need to be really strong and commanding to make sure the decision has to be acknowledged by everybody. So that situation is a last resort, but you need to use this commanding style in a very, very conscious note, so that when none of the other leadership style works, this can come in, and there are situations where this can directly have to be adopted. So these are all the 6 different styles I talked about, which I don't think you guys listening to the first time, you might have some of the people might be using it in a different genre, but I'm trying to put forward all those 6 different styles on one consolidated slide, so that whichever works in whichever scenario, it's left up to you to kind of make use of it. But there is a one common trait across all the 6 is triggering the right emotional value of your team. It can be any generations, like, whatever you guys going to learn, that's going to be applied and used across all generations. And one thing, in the world of AI can automate everything and everything. AI can create an artificial emotion, probably like chitties and whatever, like you would have seen in the movie. But the actual emotion that's created by the human bonding can never be replicated. Even if AI can replicate it, it can be an artificial fabricated emotion, which you can able to easily figure it out, but definitely not the actual emotion that comes out of from the heart. So with that, I kind of close this conversation, and I wish all you guys a grand successful leadership journey. Thank you.